Now I would like to ask Derreck Johnson to lead us with the Rotary Vision Statement and Thought for the Day. Derreck?
Right. Good afternoon, everybody, fellow Rotarians. All right. Rotary International Vision. Together we see a world where people unite, take action, create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. Right. So my thought, we have more? I thought it was more.
Can you read it?
Okay. No more mission statement.
There we go.
All right. Whoa. Okay, I guess I need glasses. We serve people in our Oakland community and throughout the world by advancing work, understanding, goodwill, and peace. The Rotary Club of Oakland welcomes people of all backgrounds, cultures, experiences, and identities, and we strive for the fair treatment, equal opportunity, and advancement for all Rotary participants to create experiences where all people feel respected
and so.
Respected. Come on, let's get the last. We're gonna finish it. Let's get the last. Can we pull it back up? Value, and they belong. There we go. Thank you. All right. Well, first and foremost, I'm honored to be here and honored to ask to give my thought for the day. And I'm just very thankful to be back engaged with Rotary. And my goal is to get other people from my generation and younger generations to get involved and active as well. My thought for the day is One Oakland. And what do I mean by that? And I would like everybody to envision what they think One Oakland should look like. And what One Oakland looks like for me is a city where I feel comfortable coming downtown at night and my car won't get broken into, or windows broken or vandalized. Kids that grow up in West Oakland and East Oakland that look just like me can walk to school without walking past feces and trash that's piled up 6 feet high. And most importantly, we have not one person that's living on our streets. So that's what I envision Oakland, and hopefully with Rotary, we can get to that goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Derreck. Ed Jelen, past District Governor Ed Jelen, would you please introduce any guests that we have, any fellow Rotarians?
Yes, thank you, President Dudley. We do have a very important guest here today. We're very honored to have with us our immediate past district governor, a member of the Rotary Club of Gilroy. Please join me in welcoming Gregg Guisiana. And then Courtney Ruby, who's sitting up there, has some very special guests with her today. And I'm going to ask Allison Bliss if she might introduce them.
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Ed. Robert was too young to remember, but Giovanni, I bet you remember that they were part of our Wading the Lake adventure that we had several years ago. Thank you. And these are Courtney's darling children, Giovanni and Robert.
Do we have any other guests of Rotarians here today? Diane, you want to? It's hard to know if you're a guest anymore since you're here almost every week. But Diane is a Rotarian, and please introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Diane Dorn, Assistant Governor for Area 4A now with Joe Garalka under District Governor Richard Flanders, and I'm here because I'm Jesse's girlfriend more than I'm anything else. But thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you for coming. Do we have any guests online that need to be introduced? We're going to say no, but if you're out there, you sure are welcome to come to the club. Gregg and Seth, do you want to come up? And Gregg Guisiana is our immediate past district governor, And last Saturday at the district conference, Gregg was going to present Cec Butner with an award. And Cec couldn't make it, so Gregg offered to come to our meeting today. So Gregg, I give you the podium.
Thank you, and I'm really happy to be here at your meeting today. This award that I'm giving is the Richard D. King Foundation Award, and it's named for our 1974-75 district governor and our 2001-02 past Rotary International president, Richard King. It's awarded to the individual who makes the greatest personal commitment to the programs of the Rotary Foundation. When Seth became president of this club, and I was at that meeting, he challenged everyone in this club to donate to the foundation. Through his leadership, he gained about a 90% participation in the foundation this year. And he raised a record number of dollars coming from this club. The district itself had a record year in foundation giving for the annual fund. Would not have made those numbers if it had not been for the Oakland Club. So thank you very much for all of your. His work with the foundation and fundraising was extraordinary. Imagine all the lives that he saved through the efforts of fundraising that is done through this club. So I want to congratulate him for having such a great year as president of the club. You're an outstanding president, and I'm proud to award the Richard D. King Foundation Award to Cec Butner.
Thank you, Gregg. Thank the district for this award. This is quite humbling. Rich King, as everyone knows, who was past district governor and was also Rotary International president. He did a lot for this club. And any small measure that I can have that reflects Richard King is a blessing to me. And for this club, I want to say, I wanted to change the culture of the club, to make sure that we knew that it was important for us to give to Rotary International TRF every year. So for that, we had a great year last year, 90% participation, where we normally was 30% participation. We had moved it up to 60. We want to keep it there at 90. For your year, Dudley, I'll make a similar donation. I won't say how much. I'll tell you, Joe, when I come out. But I'll make a similar donation for us to make that happen this year as well. Why don't we try to keep the culture going and make sure we have everybody participate every year in the Rotary International Fund and the Rotary Foundation Fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Gregg, and thank you, Cec. Joe? I think you can probably do that. We'll take that. Thank you. Fred Morris rings the bell for Cec. Courtney Ruby. Gary Hamilton, Hamilton. Tricia Connors. I just was stepping. So not being in person and having new members, I have to memorize everybody, and I so apologize to Richard and Carrie. Daniel Chang. The other thing I was wondering is you say the name before you ring the bell or people won't listen. Derreck Johnson, Ed Jellin, Joycey Mack. Thank you. Robert Kidd. And Susie Yamamizu. Susie, I'm so embarrassed. This is almost like forgetting to introduce your wife. What is a bell ringer? Now, Gregg, you have to understand, last week we did a little skit and the like, and online Sandeepa offered to ring the bell for the best caption for this. Richard Flanders wrote in it, "What is a bell ringer?" He got the second award for it. A bell ringer is a $100 generous donation to the Oakland Rotary Endowment. So we just raised a little bit over $1,000 for the endowment. And I will say, when I was visiting as a potential member, I think that was one of the things that really impressed me about a club like this, is that, you know, for a good cause, you could actually raise that much money that fast. Just an incredible feeling when I joined. Anyway, thank you. But now we have another person who's joining our club. Sandeep, would you come up, and Keith Uriarte?
Welcome. To continue on, let this day be a special day, we have a new member. And there are some interesting parts I'll get to in a moment. So Sandeep Rajbandari is our soon-to-be newest member, and he is the CEO and owner of Local Foods, and that's Foods with a Z. But he'll get a chance to explain when he does his 3-minute introduction in a month or so about the particulars of his company and how it came about. But there's something equally as important, or more important today, and that is that Sandeep has his first guest, his father, Deep. There's more. Deep was the person who encouraged, politely, that Sandeep join this Rotary Club. And there's more. Deep was a member of Rotary in Nepal, and his father, Sandeep's grandfather, was also a Rotarian in Nepal. So we now have another third generation. So anyway, the process. So welcome.
Sandeep, we're happy to have you, that you've chosen to join this club, and know that your family and your friends are always welcome to join and participate in our projects and events. By choosing to join us, you've accepted the Rotary vision, which we said at the beginning of the meeting, which is, together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. You also agree to conduct your affairs according to the 4-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? I have a few things for you. First of all, I have your red badge. It's a red badge. At some point you will exchange it for a blue badge, but it symbolizes that you're a new member and people will recognize and welcome you when you're here in the room. Please wear it. This is your Rotary pin. This is your Rotary pin. Please wear it proudly. People will recognize you. I was at a museum in Paris one time and had a pin on, and somebody came, "Oh, you're a Rotarian." And so wear it proudly and wear it often. Your commitment, I also have some books. We give lots of books here. We have a lot of, that's another. Here's a 4-way test. You can frame and put it on your wall. Here is a roster of your 300 newest best friends. And we are very proud, as I said earlier, we're very proud to be over 100 years old. And for our 100th anniversary, Linda Hamilton wrote a history of Oakland and Rotary. And please enjoy reading about the history of our club.
Thank you very much.
Here you go. Your commitment is to attend meetings, participate in service activities, and practice service above self, and contributing to the Rotary Foundation and the endowment. It's truly my pleasure and my privilege to induct you as the newest member of the Rotary Club of Oakland. Please give her a warm welcome. And I'm going to take a minute and let Keith make one more announcement here.
Well, not to diminish the importance of what just happened, Deep's father wants to join, and so if we can get him a form, he will have it filled out by the end of this meeting, and perhaps we can swear him in next week.
Thank you, Keith. Robert Kidd, could you please join me up here? So last week, we tried to present several of our committees and have them tell you a little bit about what their committee does and how you can participate and be engaged. I was a little overly ambitious. I asked 8 committee chairs to present. I started to run out of time, so I cut a couple at the end. One of them was Robert Kidd in the Speakers Committee. So I asked Robert to come back today. Robert? I'm here. And I'm going to start off the same way we did the other ones. Robert, how did you decide to join Rotary?
Well, thank you, Dudley. I blame Mary Redzer for my introduction to Rotary and my continued involvement with Rotary. We were both in the same checkout line at the old Lucky's on Lakeshore, and you know what that's like. You kind of zone out, and suddenly she was behind me making her introduction. We had known each other prior in years past, but we had parted company, and professionally we had parted company, and so it was nice to see her. And during that time, she said, "Well, have you ever thought about joining Rotary?" And I assured her that no, I had not, but really I was pretty involved. She said, "Well, come and have lunch at her expense," and that was my first introduction to Rotary. Through those doors at the back of the California Ballroom. I remember to this day how full of energy this room was, kind of like it today. And
so a sandwich and a salad got you here. Are you still here because of a sandwich and a salad?
Well, it's not been the buffet, the Rotary buffet that kept me here, but it's that same sense of fellowship of being joined together with people of goodwill who share my values, and it's fun for me to watch them working, watch all of you working hard.
So you're the chair of the Speakers Committee this year. Tell us a little bit about if somebody joins the committee, what's it like?
The Speakers Committee is responsible for bringing to the Rotary Club every week our speaker, like Kelley Kahn today. You'll meet her momentarily. Our speakers are entertaining frequently, always interesting, but it's not about entertainment. This is a core value of Rotary, to give us as Rotarians the opportunity to interact with the social and political and intellectual leaders of our community. You can join our club, our committee. We meet twice a month via Zoom, and we're the ones who kind of go through the names of potential speakers, vet them, and extend invitations to come to Rotary. If you can't be a member of our committee, there's still a place for you. There's still something you can do for us. One is you can recommend to us the names of speakers or topics that you'd like to see addressed here at Rotary. Send us an email, send me an email. We'll communicate with you about what this potential speaker has to offer our club. And while I can't guarantee that every suggestion will result in an invitation, I can promise that we will vet your proposal responsibly and get back to you quickly. Another thing you can do for us is critique the presentations we have. If a speaker really hit home, really struck home with you, let us know, so that we know in the future that that's something that really resonated with you. By the same token, if a speaker missed the mark for some reason, let us know that too. That's how we fine tune our speakers in the future. No pressure, Kelley. Finally, and this is an obvious point, but I mention it, you can really support our work by showing up at Rotary meetings. not staying home. I know that during the pandemic, I've had the experience of looking at a speaker and saying, not that interested. I think I'll pass on today's meeting. Well, I'll tell you, you're missing out. Even if it's something you don't think is of interest to you, you'd be surprised if you sit here and listen how a topic or a speaker opens you up and presses your boundaries. So come join us, be aware of us, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, Robert. And the last point you made, again, is maybe the second reason I thought about joining Rotary was the speakers. It was just nice to get away to come here for a meeting. And I'm going to say it's going to be 2 or 3 months before we know how things settle out from the pandemic, who really can come to the meeting. We're still getting a good attendance at our meeting. We have, actually last week we had much more on Zoom than we're here, but it was still the same number of people that come to meetings. But I still remember, I'm going to say 2 or 3 speakers from 20 years ago that I would never have just, by choice gone to somewhere to listen to them, but coming here, they really influenced who I am. So anyway, thank you, Robert, and support our speakers committee. Ruth, could you bit about what's going on with the community service committee? And they have a project coming up, I understand.
Thank you, President Dudley and fellow Rotarians. I would like to invite you all to join us on Saturday, July 31st, for a morning of sunshine, service, and fellowship, while we come together to do service for the Police Activity League campsite in the Oakland Hills. We need at least 40 people. It is open to members, friends, and family. I believe we're going to ask the Interact, Rotaract, and Hope folks to join us, so they have an opportunity to mix and mingle with some of our young people and students who participate with Rotary, and we would really love to see everyone participate. So the sign up is on the club website, as many things are today, and we really look forward to seeing you. And this is an outdoor event, so there's no vaccine requirement.
Even though no vaccine requirement, please be safe. We're not over this thing yet, and we want everybody to come out well. We want to be leaders in how we get through the pandemic. Is Mark Rosen out there? I don't know. Okay, Mark, can you come on screen?
Am I unmuted now?
Adventure today.
Okay, Dudley, am I unmuted?
We can hear you.
All right, can you see me?
We're working on that. Please go ahead.
All right, well, I'm going to follow up a little with what Rose just said. We had a cycle event scheduled for the 31st. It's an easy ride, but we've moved it to August 1st because we didn't want to have a conflict with the PLL promotion or volunteer effort on the 31st. So let me tell you about the ride that is now scheduled for August 1st. It is from Point Richmond over to Larkspur over the Richmond San Rafael Bridge. And we're going to meet at the East Brother Brewery at 9:30 with a defined cycle kickoff at 10 o'clock. We will go across the bridge. We will end up at Larkspur, where we will take a break either at the Rustic Bakery, which is there, and they'll have food trucks there as well. And this is an easy ride. The total ride distance is 20 miles. It's 10 miles out, 10 miles back. And after we get done eating and festing, we're going to come back to Point Richmond, and we're going to go and do some social interaction at the East Brothers Brewery. So it should be a fun day. Everyone is welcome. I mean, when I say everyone, you can bring family, friends. It is on the Rotary website where you can sign up and get more information. There are pictures up there on the ride, and also a route where you can actually see where we're going to be riding, the elevation. That was provided by Steve Blair. In fact, the picture behind me is a photograph on the bridge of cyclers, and it's fun, it's safe, totally safe. One last thing, Dudley. On the last ride, we had some cyclists that were, let's just say they were the easy peasy riders, and we had some advanced riders, and the advanced riders did stay behind to help the easy. We will have two groups of riders. The ones that are a little bit more on the road all the time, and then the people that just will join us. Be assured that we will cycle at your speed. We'll have some good time, and then we'll go out for some beer. And it's on the website. Dudley, anything else?
Did you want to say just one thing about, we don't have a lot of time, but about the A's game coming up?
We will announce that later. I'd just like to focus on the ride right now. We have time for the A's game in the end of August. I want to get the message out that these are events that we can get out, enjoy, be together, and it's fresh air, and the bridge is fun to ride. Absolutely fun to ride.
Great, and beer is good.
Yeah, the view is good, and the food's good.
Thank you. Courtney, would you please come up and introduce our speaker?
Thank you, President. Hello, Rotarians. It is such an honor to be in front of so many friends today and virtually to be with you. So today I have the honor to introduce Kelley Kahn. Kelley is a city planner, currently working in the nexus of planning, real estate, and the arts. Ms. Kahn serves as the City of Oakland Special Projects Director for the Office of the Department of Economic Development, overseeing a portfolio of real estate, economic development, cultural arts, and marketing initiatives. I'd say she has her hands full. Most recently, she coordinated Mayor Schaaf's task force to identify strategies to build affordable workplaces and, workspaces and housing for Oakland artists. Her project shortlist includes the new Douglas office building on Webster Street, the high-rise residences in the Valdez Triangle, affordable housing at Brooklyn Basin, the redesign of the Oakland Museum of California, the renovation of the Henry J. Kaiser Center, plans for development over BART's Lake Merritt Station. But prior to joining the city, she served as a project director in the San Francisco Mayor's Office of Economic and Workforce Development. There, she oversaw the redevelopment of San Francisco's Pier 70. She also served at the San Francisco Redevelopment Agency as a senior project manager, leading the Mission Bay redevelopment project that transformed Mission Bay from a vacant rail yard into new housing, public open spaces and art, and a thriving biotechnology cluster. Previously, Ms. Kahn worked as a city planner for the City of Oakland, a city planner for the City of Berkeley, and a planning consultant in private practice. She's been very busy, and we're so lucky to have her in the City of Oakland. Kelley also serves on the Advisory Council for nonprofit arts and education organizations, such as the Crucible in West Oakland, and on the advisory board of the Sustainable Business Alliance. She was also a mayoral appointee to the City of Oakland Landmarks Preservation and Advisory Committee. She was born and raised in the East Bay and is a current Oakland resident. Kelley holds a master's in city and regional planning from the University of California, Berkeley, and a bachelor's degree in English from UCLA. So even in the face of the COVID pandemic, Oakland continues to build and to plan. And what is being planned in West Oakland and East Oakland? Well, today, Speaker Kelley Kahn will discuss the opportunities and challenges that such projects present to the communities of Oakland. Thank you. Kelley? Great. Hello. Thank you, Courtney, for that introduction. Thank you, Dudley. Thank you, Robert, for inviting me to be here today. Let me see if I can make sure this technology works. I should say this is my first time speaking at an event like this since COVID. I'm used to Zoom. I nailed the Zoom technology, and now I'm back to the old school technology. So to move forward on this. Oh, okay. Can I go back? Can you go back? And okay, one forward. Now I got it. Okay, thanks.
Yes, as Courtney said, I've worn a lot of hats. I actually did start my career out of grad school at the city of Oakland, working on Jerry Brown's 10K initiative, doing all that entitlement work for downtown Oakland. It's where I learned everything about CEQA and zoning. And then I spent a long time in San Francisco, and then I came back to Oakland because I love the city and I live here. I've also been lucky enough to attend a number of Rotary events over the years, mostly I think your mixers, where we just sit around and chat and drink, and they're always really fun. Yeah, beer, good. But it's nice to be in this more formal setting, getting to share my work. I should say that I think it wasn't in the bio, but I have spent the last 2 years working in Mayor Schaaf's office, very specifically on this issue of the connection between the arts and real estate. And in a changing city with rising rents, how do you hold on to arts and to artists, cultural organizations through land use policy and real estate assets? And I've recently now moved into the Economic and Workforce Development Department to really oversee a lot of the real estate and asset management work of that department, and still always being mindful of this issue around the arts. And I thought, since this is part of one of the sort of civic sessions, I thought it might be nice to just explain a tiny bit what the Department of Economic and Workforce Development does, because it's a very interesting department, charged really with minding the economic health of the city, really focusing on how to use the city's public assets and resources to make sure that our economy and our cultural life is equitable and available to everyone. And it's very multidimensional, as you can see on the slide behind me. It's workforce, it's business attraction, it's cultural arts. All of our art funding is out of this department. It's real estate work. Focus very much on city-owned real estate. And then we also recently, just as of the last budget cycle, the city's special events permitting process moved into economic development. It used to be run out of the city administrator's office and the police department, and it was very much a regulatory role. Now the idea is that we actually want our cultural life and our street festivals and special events to be something we celebrate, and it's more of an economic development issue and less of what they used to call a nuisance. You had to get nuisance permits. That was the department it lived in. But those are the kind of roles. And so I sort of sit now today in that sort of real estate asset management, public-private development space with another foot in the cultural arts box there. So I wanted to do two things today. I wanted to give just sort of a snapshot of Oakland's economy, because it's been a crazy ride over the last year. And then also share with you some of the more catalytic development projects underway, particularly the ones that involve city assets. And I just want to preface this by saying you could do 10 sessions on these two topics and not cover the breadth of what's happening in Oakland. So this is sort of a lens and projects that I'm touching or I find particularly intriguing. I'm not going to talk about the Oakland A's today, for instance, although I do think everyone will be back at the negotiating table soon on that one. So I wanted to just start, like I said, about what's going on in our economy. It is no surprise, and I'm going to start on sort of a negative note, I'm sorry, but it's no surprise that COVID took an enormous toll on the city of Oakland. As of in April 2020, sort of right at the sort of worst part of the pandemic, our unemployment was about 15%, and that was up from 3% the same time last year. You know, the year before, Oakland had finally completely emerged from the recession, right? Business was booming, tourism was thriving, we had really low vacancy rates, and we were actually focused on the problems that was creating, the displacement of artists and small businesses, because rents were rising. And then all of a sudden COVID hits. And you saw 38% of our small businesses reported closing, and that's either temporarily or permanently. It's hard to tell from the data. As you walk around Oakland, you can see they're reopening now, but there was a moment where the reports were 38% of small businesses were just closed for business. We saw huge decreases in revenue to the city, particularly our TOT tax, the transit occupancy tax, which is what we get from hotels, because the hospitality industry just completely shut down. That's a big deal in the work I do, because that's what funds a lot of our civic and cultural life, the institutions, the museum, the cultural grants that the city gives, the zoo, Chabot Space Center, all the places that we like to go and create a sense of belonging in this city. And then a lot of this did really exacerbate some of the disparities we're already seeing across racial lines in unemployment and jobs. And I think these two maps, if you can make them out, kind of show those connections that you can see on the left. The highest rate of unemployment filings during COVID were in Oakland's lowest census tracts. And then you look at the map on the right, and those same census tracts are the ones where you had the highest COVID impacts. So the impacts of COVID were disproportionate. They affected a lot of people and many of our residents and workers differently. And I'm not saying anything you don't know, but when you see data like that, it becomes so glaring. Similarly, the greatest job losses in Oakland were in the retail and hospitality industry. And a lot of those are small businesses. 90% of all Oakland businesses are considered small businesses, less than 10 people. Majority of them are owned by women and entrepreneurs of color. But yet these are the ones that were hit the hardest. Jobs like retail and hospitality can't really be done from working at home. People with desk jobs kind of weathered this okay. A lot of the firms that are in a lot of the buildings in downtown, those workers were okay. But it is these industries that provide the jobs. And this slide, I think, kind of shows the differences that when you look at those professional services jobs, those are actually doing okay. They climbed up a little bit during COVID. And then you look at the very lower right, 73% of hospitality jobs were lost. So this is a really, really sort of tough scenario that we were dealing with. But we are now, and I think us gathering here today shows this, we are now sort of moving into a recovery mode. And this is thanks a lot to a number of local interventions, but also largely due to state and federal resources, mostly money pouring into Oakland. It took a while for that money to get here and then to get out the door, but it's happening. I think the city immediately tried to figure out how can we help businesses stay afloat in face of the very stringent public health requirements. So you probably read a lot about our Flex Streets program, which lets businesses use the sidewalk, the parking lanes, even the entire lanes of the roadway to actually do their business enterprise. The city council just decided to make that program permanent a few weeks ago because it did add so much, I think, to the sort of civic and urban life of the city to have our streets activated. We also did see the use of a lot of city property to support small entrepreneurs, vendors out at the Coma Market in East Oakland near the Eastmont Mall. Became a really thriving outdoor place where commerce could happen, where residents of East Oakland could sell their wares. There was a lot of COVID testing out there, information, dance, exercise. Similarly, there was a pilot at Lake Merritt to try to keep those vendors both sort of COVID safe and create a space where vending could happen at Lake Merritt in a safe debate. Lastly, I did want to just say that it's really starting to turn the economy around. There has been $1 billion federal relief funds into the city of Oakland right now. And that's through a lot of different programs, most recently money for restaurants and our shuttered venues, our entertainment venues. And a lot of this relief has very consciously, I think, been targeted to low income and BIPOC residents to address those disparities we were sort of just talking about of who was most impacted. The other interesting, hold on. Thank you. A couple other signs of recovery. So as I said last year in April, unemployment was at 15%. Now it's at 8%, about the same as the state. Our retail vacancy is back down. It's at 5.6%. There was just an article in the Business Times. That's actually lower than Walnut Creek when you compare the markets, which is just fascinating to me. And it shows that Oakland is sort of an interesting place that people want to come. And our office vacancy is also doing pretty well compared to other places, 9.6%, still higher than it was during our boom, but lower than San Francisco's. And the other signs of recovery is there is just a lot of interest in companies during the pandemic and now of wanting to be in Oakland. It's still a choice that workers want to be here. There was a big transaction that happened, the Uptown Station project, the old Sears building, where Square, the tech company, is a tenant, recently sold for about $420 million. That is a huge amount of revenue into the city, which is great, the percent that we get. And new tenants are coming, as you've probably read about at 300 Lakeside, the sort of 1960s building. The developer TMG purchased that, and PG&E is moving its headquarters there. We'll have about 2,500 new workers in 2022 on Oakland streets supporting our small businesses. And we just read that Twitter signed a 60,000 square foot lease downtown. And this is kind of on top of what had already been a very sort of diversified economy in Oakland. And I think one of the reasons we're so resilient is we are not a one sector town. We are not all tech businesses. We have healthcare. We have a big nonprofit sector. We have companies. We have the University of California here. We have a lot of government entities. And that makes us more resilient when we face the kind of impact, economic shocks that we've been seeing over the last couple of years. So now I think I want to pivot to maybe what was sort of the more interesting part of it, which is that there are another sign, I think, of our recovery is that a lot of really catalytic real estate development projects are still moving forward despite the pandemic. Investment and interest in Oakland continues. So I'm going to share just a few projects, mostly ones that the city is either a sponsor of or we have property or money in the deal, but a few others that are just sort of interesting that kind of show you how Oakland is going to be changing over the next 3 to 5 years. The first part of it, and Courtney mentioned this, I think, in my bio, is there's this super interesting new sort of cluster of activity happening south of Lake Merritt, where you have the Henry J. Kaiser Convention Center, which has been shuttered since 2005, city-owned property, tried multiple times to get it reopened, too expensive for the city to manage. It contains an arena, which probably a lot of you have been in, and an 1,800-seat performing arts theater with some of the best acoustics in Northern California. And it's been sitting vacant for more than 15 years now. You also have, and you can't see it right now, but the Oakland Museum is buried in there right at the foot of the lake. And you've also had all of these amazing improvements at the lake, the Measure DD bond money, which has created basically a new gathering space. And this is, of course, the Warriors Parade. I just love this photo. I put it in every presentation I ever do. And then also just beyond this is the Lake Merritt BART station, where they're doing a big TOT development. So I wanted to talk about a couple of these. The first one, so this is an image of the Henry J. Kaiser Convention Center and what's going to happen there. So construction has started to rehab this building. The city entered into a partnership with Orton Development to create basically an arts and culture cluster there, where there's going to be office space for arts nonprofits. There's going to be event space. There's going to be a reopening of the Calvin Simmons Theater, with the Oakland Symphony being one of the main users of that space. And there's going to be a number of event facilities throughout the building. There's a number of ballrooms in there that are just perfect for smaller events. And there's also going to be a new cafe and gathering space in the front of the building that will really link that building better with Lake Merritt. And you can get a cup of coffee, you can sit out there, because right now there's nowhere to kind of get a cup of coffee if you're out there. And then immediately adjacent to that, we have the Oakland Museum's renovation, and they just reopened in June. They took advantage of COVID and their shutdown to finish a major renovation, which was very much focused on this idea of that picture I showed where you can't even see the museum from Lake Merritt. Right now, they have redesigned it so they now have an opening on the Lake Merritt side of the building. You can see in the photo, on both photos show these new big cutouts where they are going to have entrances into the museum from the Lake Merritt side. And all of the gardens in there are essentially going to become public open space that you can go in and use those gardens now without paying admission to the museum. But they are intended to be sort of an extension of Lake Merritt and to take advantage of all of this new activity. And it's really beautiful. I was there on Sunday. Attendance is still kind of low, so I urge you all to go and stand at that very corner and look out. And suddenly, as you can see, you can now see Lake Merritt from the gardens of the museum. Then, just a block away, we have the Lake Merritt TOD project. This is a big project, BART land. The developer is Strata Development in partnership with the BALTSI, the nonprofit housing developer. and they got their entitlements in May. This project was just approved in May. So they are pulling building permits. Construction is going to start next year, but the project's going to be about 550 residential units, almost half affordable, 500,000 square feet of office, and about 16,000 square feet of retail, including a commercial kitchen intended to really help provide space for very small micro entrepreneurs in Oakland in the food business. They're also doing a daycare there. But this is going to bring, again, a lot of people to an area when you're out there today. It's very, very quiet. And it's really going to draw a lot of attention to that BART station. And what these projects collectively do, I think, is create a kind of a new neighborhood that actually feels linked, that you know what's out there. When you get out of BART, you're going to sort of see and feel like you are in a place. And there will be wayfinding and signage that gets you to the lake, the museum, the Henry J. Kaiser. This is another part of the story, I think, in this part of town, and this project is in its infancy, but the city council about a year and a half ago approved a negotiating agreement for a very small building called the Fire Alarm Building that the city of Oakland owns. It's historic, 1911, it was built in 1911, and the city uses it to store a lot of our public works machinery and our facilities staff. It's right at next to the courthouse at the intersection of Oak Street and Lake Merritt Boulevard. And there has been an idea to do a new museum of jazz and art there. And the proposal calls for building around the historic building, so it's sort of an adaptive reuse. And there'll be education, exhibits about jazz, there'll be art and music, and there's a 400-seat venue that's planned. So this is kind of one to watch. It's got traction now. Our council in their last budget gave some money for redevelopment work, but it's an interesting project, and there's going to be some debate about historic resources and what does the architecture look like. But if something like this gets built next to the Henry J. Kaiser, next to the Oakland Museum, you really have something new and vital, I think, in this part of the lake. Another super interesting thing that's happening in Oakland, which hasn't been happening for a very long time, is we have seen an influx of new hotel development finally. For a long time, the story was that hotel just didn't have enough sort of attractions to warrant hotel development, that we couldn't get the rates in bedrooms. And that has really shifted. We had at 225 Telegraph, a new hotel is now open. You can go onto the rooftop and have a meal and a glass of wine. It's called the Moxie, right at Telegraph in West Grand. There's one under construction now on Jefferson, a new Marriott hotel. And then Signature Development has also another hotel on Broadway at 24th and Broadway. And this is a really big deal because of that transit occupancy tax that I told you about that has just been, before the pandemic, it wasn't enough money to support our cultural and civic institutions. And so the fact that we now have more beds coming online is good for so many reasons. So this is a really interesting development that we're actually all a little surprised that there's this much hotel development even coming out of COVID. So this is a project that this is another downtown project before I leave the downtown. And I only bring it up, this is completely a private deal. It's a new tower, but if this gets built, it will be the tallest building in Oakland, 38 stories. It's Hine's development, and they purchased about a 4-story building owned by the University of California right at 20th and Thomas Berkeley Way, right by the 19th Street BART station. And they're looking to do an 800,000 square foot office building, 600 feet, 38 stories. And they have just put in an application with the planning department. But it's always sort of interesting when these buildings come out that are so big and so tall, and you wonder if it's ever going to happen. So I would keep my eyes on this one. City doesn't have anything to do with it. Totally driven by the private market and the interest in our office, the demand for office space in Oakland. So a project you probably all know well and could warrant a whole session is the Brooklyn Basin development down on the water, approved way back in 2006. As you know, this is about 3,000 units of new housing, about 435 of those are affordable, 30 acres of new parks. And what's neat now is construction is finally underway down there. 420 units are built and open. The first park has now come online, Township Commons. There's roller skating there, there's music, and if you haven't been down there, you should go down there and drive it because it is actually starting to feel like a place. Oh my gosh, I have two. Oh, actually, I'm good. Thanks. Also, Rocky's Market has a outpost there where you can get lunch. But they are now also trying to do a little bit more density, get a little more units. So we just reopened a negotiation with them to allow them to build a little more in exchange for more community benefits, more affordable housing, and more commitments around local jobs. I did want to just touch on West Oakland a tiny bit. There was a major, huge project approved to be developed at West Oakland BART. This is a development deal with BART, but the city's approving it. It is completely approved. They have to now work through their building permits, but this is about 380,000 square feet of office and about 750 units of housing. So, and makerspace and retail space trying to connect to a lot of the arts in West Oakland. So this could be transformative if it happens. So it's another one to watch. They just need to get their building permits. And then I think I wanted to just end in two ways, that the city with our own assets really is putting a huge focus on building affordable housing, because that's just the greatest need. It was before the pandemic and it is now. So we continue to build, to partner with developers to build affordable housing at these major transit hubs. Right here, the Fruitville Village project, we just closed on another part of that project. It's going to be 181 units of new housing, 46 of which are going to be for formerly homeless. And then similarly out at 95th and International, we just closed on a project with Related that's purely affordable, 57 units of housing, a number of those set aside for formerly homeless. And then lastly, in partnership with the state, we are spending a lot of our time figuring out where we can buy and purchase existing buildings, because it is always cheaper to convert existing housing to house our homeless and to provide space that's truly affordable, and that's cheaper and faster if you buy. And so this is Clifton Hall. This was a dorm in Rockridge next to the CCA Art College that the city was able to use state money to buy, and is now going to be basically a shelter, or not a shelter, it's going to be permanent housing for formerly homeless. And you're going to see this repeated now, this acquisition of spaces, including the Temescal Inn on Temescal. It's a motel that's going to be used for the same way, and also a couple of properties around Lake Merritt. But I think I wanted to then end there, and this focus on how the city is using its properties to actually provide affordable housing. And I could really, truly talk for 5 more hours on what's happening in Oakland, but these are ones that are interesting to me, and I thought they might be interesting to you, and I'm happy to take questions.
I have to say we're out of time for questions, but Kelley, if you could stay a while afterwards. I mean, there's so much fascinating stuff. I think whenever we have a presentation of what's being built in Oakland, it's one of our highlight meetings to see what our future is. I think the last one we did was all of the office space and office buildings that were being built about 3 years. You lose time over COVID. All of a sudden there's a year. So it was maybe 3 years ago. Maybe it was 4. I don't know, it was 2 or 4. Anyway, but Kelley, if you could stay a little bit after, we'd really appreciate it. Kelley, this year we're highlighting the new Rotary area focus, the environment. In your honor, we're making a donation to the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group called SRAG toward their focus on biodiversity, sustainable living, pollution, the climate, food systems, and circular economy. In addition, I would like to give you a copy of the Centennial book. Our club describes the first 100 years of Rotary in Oakland, again, written by our own Linda Hamilton.
Oh,
thank you for being with us. So, Robert Kidd, you're going to pitch our speaker for next week. Robert, we need a microphone here or something. Yeah, come on up.
Next week, we call upon Robert Rayburn, a member of our club and a member of the BART Board of Directors, to talk about BART. BART will be reopening in full on about 10 days from now. And so just before that reopening takes place, Robert will be here not only to talk about the joy and the promise of reopening BART, but also to talk about things like structural deficits and lack of paying patrons and so on. So we can look forward to Robert not only telling us the good, the bad, and the ugly about what's going on with BART.
Thank you, Robert. Do you know if there were any bell ringers online today?
Yes, Stephanie Kazanza rang the bell for CES.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't catch who it was. Stephanie Kazanza, okay. Thank you for CES. Any others?
And Deborah Barnes rang the bell for Robert Kidd.
Somebody likes you, Robert. There is one person out there. Thank you for all bell ringers. Derreck, thank you so much for giving us the thought for the day. Past District Governor Gregg, thank you so much for coming today and presenting CES with, and I think we all believe, a well-deserved award for leading us last year. That was a tremendous effort he led us with. It was incredible. Sandeep, so much. We welcome you to the club and hope you get to know every one of your new 300 best friends. Robert Kidd, thank you for sharing with us about the speaker committee. Ruth Straub, thank you for sharing about community service and sign up online for the PALS campsite cleanup. Courtney, thank you. We always love having you back here at the club. You're so special to us, and bringing your boys with you today. Kelley, thank you so much for your presentation, and please hang around. I know there's questions. I'm sorry we didn't get time. Past District Governor Ed Jelen, you're wonderful. Thank you for leading us. All of the greeters who are here today, the mic runners, club service. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Remember, we are Rotary. Serve to help others, and don't keep Rotary a secret. This meeting is adjourned.